Hello friends, in today's video we'll be ranking each of the Elden Ring DLC Remembrance bosses in a tier list. As always, these are my thoughts and opinions, and everything is subjective. Thanks for watching and enjoy the video. So this is what we'll be working on today. Our tier list. We're just going to be doing Remembrance bosses and then a couple other bosses that I thought would be interesting to comment on. Furnace Golem and Golden Hippo. We're just gonna go with like a basic dexterity build, I guess, to play through the DLC. Alright, that's fine. So I already have an idea of what I would do as like a gut reaction for the tier list, but I'm not confident that my first playthrough was a good enough experience with all of the Remembrance bosses. So we're gonna start out with stage front. We're gonna fight Dancing Lion. So in my head, Divine Beast Dancing Lion, it was a tough pick because originally when I first fought it, I was pretty underwhelmed. I like aspects of it, but there's also things I don't like about it. In terms of boss design, I like the head, but the remainder of it, not a big fan. I don't like that it's like covered in cloth and it's just two dudes in a suit or whatever. And it's kind of annoying to understand what the boss is doing. But the music for Lion is very good, which definitely helps it out. It's one of the easily like top two. I would say next to maybe Promised Consort. But just for a safe middle ground right now, I think we're gonna put Divine Beast Dancing Lion in B tier. But we're gonna fight him again with some fragments, some blessings to try to figure out what we think of the boss now. Oh yeah, another one of the issues that I had with this boss fight was the performance issues during certain attacks. Originally, so right now I have this boss in B tier. Oh, yeah, see, look, frame rate lost for right there already. All right, here we go. This is the lightning one. Right, he throws lightning. And shoots lightning. I wonder if this changes his absorption. Oh yeah, I didn't like the RNG lightning on the ground. I think I have the unpopular opinion with this boss fight. I think a lot of people really enjoyed it. I think that I liked it more than my least favorite fights in this DLC, obviously. But I don't know. Even after playing it again, like the music just isn't enough for me to really enjoy this fight. And not just because I'm getting my ass beat. I have not dodged like a single one of his attacks. The thing is, like, those frame killing AoEs would be more frustrating if they weren't even the worst offenders of that in this DLC, which they're not even remotely close. Thing is, like, I'm sure this... Oh, you can jump that? I'm sure this boss can be bullied pretty hard. That's cool though. I like that. That's a net positive for this fight. See, the thing is, like, I feel like B isn't a bad spot for this boss. Oh, no, he's gonna heal now. Let's see how much he heals. Oh, not much. That's really not that bad at all. I mean, the boss really is sick. I don't know. I feel like B might be a bit low. Can never be happy about RNG lightning. But that's just one facet of this boss. And that's that. See, I mean, I did so good on this attempt compared to the previous ones. I mean, it's a solid fight. I don't know. This is going to be a tough one. I mean, there's only 11 remembrances, and I can already think ahead of some of them that I know I'm going to put lower on the list. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and move Divine Beast Dancing Lion to A tier. We're also going to be fighting them in order to... Well, maybe not. I was going to say in order of how I fought them my first playthrough, but that's going to be difficult with how they're intended to be fought. Because Bayle's a pretty late game one. Like, you should have a higher blessing level. So I would say, like, Bayle maybe before Promised Consort. I'm okay with this order. So let's go to a Rellana next. This one's going to be rough because I'm pretty sure I barely beat her in my first playthrough. The other thing is I'm a huge sucker for bosses who can parry, so they're probably going to be a bit higher on the list, especially if you can incorporate it into the boss fight. But being able to cheese a boss with parry is another story. I feel like that kind of takes away. I'm just going to stay at Blessing level. Oh, I was at Blessing level 3. We'll stay at 3 for this fight, and then probably a level up for the next boss. No opening scene for Rellana. My first impressions of Rellana on my last playthrough was very positive. I really enjoyed this boss. Her attacks do come out really fast, but they don't hit particularly hard. She does have that, though, which chips you down pretty bad. Got a stagger. I feel like just in general, Rellana's not super difficult. Her phase 2 is definitely a lot harder. Oh yeah, now she starts hitting really hard. I mean, it's a cool fight. It reminds me a lot of Pontiff Sullivan from Dark Souls 3. My light roll ran out. No, she's only 2 parries to get their post. I mean, I beat her by the skin of my teeth and got lucky. I almost want more time to... I think that was too late. I almost want more time to mess around with her. Also, I don't think I placed her before. Yeah, we killed her. I think that she's also a contender for A tier, probably higher than Dancing Lion for me. I mean, I'm reserving S tier for the bosses that I thoroughly enjoyed in this DLC. And Rellana was up there, but she wasn't quite there yet. So she's definitely not S tier, but I don't think that she's lower than Dancing Lion. So we'll leave Rellana at A for now. Who knows? Maybe I'll change my mind about some of these placements later, and then we'll shift them around. But for the time being, we'll just leave it at that. Both in A tier, and then we move on to, what was our next boss again? It was Putrescent Knight. Okay, yeah, that should be easy. So initially, Putrescent Knight was pretty solid for me. I would say it was another decent fight. It took me a little bit to beat him. I think that the average player... Oh yeah, we're also going to raise our blessing by 2. Because I mean, at this point, you'll have explored all of Cerulean Coast. So that's like, what, 10 fragments up to this point? Which should be pretty easy. Putrescent Knight, I don't know. Initially, I would have said Putrescent Knight was better than Divine Beast Dancing Lion. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to lower Dancing Lion and put Putrescent Knight in A tier. I think that's going to be a hot take. I think that the average person probably would swap these two. Maybe even put Putrescent Knight lower, because I think a lot of people just didn't like this boss, at least from what I saw. But that's not going to change my thoughts on it. So we're going to go ahead and fight Putrescent Knight now and decide for ourselves. One of the issues that this boss suffers from is definitely, at least for a few particular attacks, they're just kind of long-winded and overstay their welcome and leave not much room to punish the boss. And we're seeing it to start with. Alright, well, I mean, I whiffed there. I mean, in terms of mounted fights, I think that this is definitely the better of the two. This boss kind of gave me a beatdown before. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention the soundtrack. This one, I feel, was the most forgettable in the DLC. Besides maybe Commander Gaius, but that's because Commander Gaius literally didn't even have a unique track. Right, phase 2 is where things get a little bit goofy. Oh, jumped early there. I do like the phase 2 in this. I'm surprised it didn't hit me. I think it adds another layer of depth to it that this fight definitely needed. All these fights are coming down to the wire, too. Okay, yeah, there's a boomerang throw there. And then, oh yeah, another thing is, any boss fight that incorporates jumping in their moveset that requires you to jump, or maybe not requires you to, but allows you to jump for a window of opportunity to punish them, is also a plus for me. Being able to incorporate those mechanics instead of it just being like dodge the attack, dodge it again, swing, dodge and swing. So that's another thing that I do like about this fight is he does have a couple attacks that you can jump. Like, I like the fire. I like it a lot. It makes it more, it definitely adds that extra layer of depth to it that the fight needs. I think otherwise that fight couldn't possibly be higher than B tier, possibly even C tier. But in my head, I feel like I remember it more fondly, like my first playthrough compared to this one. I don't know if it's just because he's kind of frail, like he takes a lot of damage, or what. I don't know. I'm tempted to lower this boss. For now, I'm gonna put it in B tier. Looking at the rest of the bosses, I can definitely see some other ones that I know will fit into A tier. So yeah, we're just gonna roll with that. B tier Putrescent Knight. I think I still like Putrescent Knight more than Divine Beast Dancing Lion though. Although it is really close. There's definitely an argument to be made for this. Even though before I thought I liked Putrescent Knight more. I mean, Dancing Lion just has a better OST, and also the fight has more cool mechanics, more interesting elements to it. No pun intended. Next was, I believe, Messmer. Now, Messmer is an interesting one. Spoiler alert, I'm currently working on a guide for this boss. And this boss is, well, it's my favorite boss in this DLC. I love Messmer so much. I think that any fight that's against a boss and it's clear what they're doing, aka they're not horrendously large and off screen, you just kind of got to guess at what they're doing, and can also be parried, aka also why Rellana was so highly ranked. But Messmer just has such a better feel to it than Rellana. It's got a better OST. It's got a more interesting phase too, and it's just a satisfying boss overall. I love Messmer the Impaler. I think it's easily top 3, including the base game. I've been practicing him, but that doesn't mean I'm going to do well against him, so we'll see. I might still get my ass beat. This is one of the other attacks. I like that. I feel like Messmer does give you a lot of opportunities to punish him. Oh, with the bleed, too. So even if you're using, like, a really heavy weapon, like, he leaves himself open a lot, like with those attacks that leave him on the ground. Also, like, lore-wise, this boss is just sick and has one of the coolest grabs in the game, next to maybe Promised Consort. Oh yeah, he is not giving me any chance to... There we go. We got one parry in before the end. Really, really cool fight. I love the snakes in phase 2. They're not like... It makes his phase 2 different enough that it warrants its own discussion. I mean, I'm just a Messmer fanboy. I think he's staying in S tier. I really like this fight. Doing it again, I mean, granted, also, like I said, I've been practicing this fight off stream. It's a incredible fight. I love it. The music, the fight. Moving on to a boss I'm not as fond of, Commander Gaius. I don't like this boss. I don't like him, like, at all. I think this boss kind of blows. I think he is the weakest in the DLC. Not only does he not have a unique track, it's like Tree Sentinel music or some shit, but I didn't even think he was a remembrance boss when I first fought him. Yeah, this is where I would put him based off my first playthrough, which, reminder, was a 0 blessing run. Let's go fight Commander Gaius again. I won't really have much to say about this boss. I'm sure it'll all come out during the fight, and we'll see how big of a difference the light roll makes for what I believe is his most annoying attack. Still hits me even with light roll. I don't think phase 2 even adds much to this fight. That was a horrible dodge. Surprised I didn't get a stagger. This one must be a stagger, yeah. I mean, you can kind of bully him on his right side, though. I don't know. I mean, just mounted fights in general in FromSoft games, I feel are fairly weak. except for a few exceptions. But I don't know. Even after fighting him, I imagine that like my opinions of the bosses aren't going to change a whole lot from memory, but Gaius definitely isn't one of them. I don't know. Phase 2 doesn't feel any different. It doesn't feel like it introduces much. It just feels like another mounted boss fight in a FromSoft game to me. I think this is the weakest DLC boss. The weakest Remembrance DLC boss. So yeah, I think that's gonna solidify his place at the bottom of D tier. We're gonna be in kind of a gauntlet, I'm seeing. Next is the Tree Avatar. I don't know. This boss is interesting. I have some opinions on this boss. Immediately, I would say C tier. I think that's another hot take people aren't gonna agree with. I think that the Tree Avatar having 3 health bars and then not really changing a lot about its moveset in between each health bar, it's just disappointing. Like, this boss really doesn't do much. It doesn't have many attacks, I feel. And not that, like, difficulty plays a huge factor into my placement for a lot of these, but it really wasn't a particularly difficult boss. Definitely not uninspired. I like the design of it, and I like the soundtrack. I think that it's well done, but we'll move on to the fight now. It feels more like a test of endurance than anything. The fact that it has 3 health bars. As always, my depth perception in this fight is way off. Also, any boss that has an attack like this that just kind of feels like it delays the fight is immediately less interesting to me. I do like that you can not riposte the boss for a bit of a tougher challenge. So it comes back at full instead of 75%. Phase 2, almost no different from Phase 1, besides that charge attack. I am thankful that they at least had the foresight to make its AoE, not the AoE, the projectile attack, the golden balls, only have 1 volley of them. Because in Phase 1, when those have like 5 volleys, that's a lot more annoying. You'd think Phase 3 would be substantially different, right? Well, you'd be wrong. He opens with the charges. Still does the same projectile attacks. Music changes. Oh yeah, this is new. It starts to do that boom attack. And that should be it. Yeah, very simple fight. I mean, it's good, but I feel like for what it is, they could have done the exact same thing with just 2 health bars. But instead, making it into the second fight in Soul's history to have 3 health bars and it just be the same fight 3 health bars in a row. At least Frida has her first phase, which is her first phase. It's unique in its own right. And the second phase is the duo fight, and then the third phase is like her first one, but she's buffed. And she has all these AoEs and she has these new tricks and stuff. Whereas I'm pretty sure the only difference between Phase 1 and 2 is the charge attack. And then the only difference between Phase 2 and 3 is the AoE that he does at the end. And that's kind of disappointing to me. Also, I put it in C tier. I think that the Avatar boss is definitely better than Commander Gaius, for sure. But I do also think it's weaker than Dancing Lion. But is it worth being higher up in B tier or lower in D tier? I kind of think not. I think that this falls perfectly into C tier being average. Now, Metyr, whatever you want to call it, Mother of Fingers. Gut reaction, another hot take. I didn't like this fight either. I don't know. Something about this fight just didn't really sit well with me. I don't know what it was. I don't even really remember what the track sounds like, but I do remember the run back being a bit annoying. Thankfully, there's a statue of America there, but if you want to like change your build around or something, you have to run all the way back from the Grace in the cathedral. Annoying more than anything. I would have to say it'd be somewhere in this range. Above Gaius, below Tree? Let's just say C tier below Tree. Depending on my thoughts on it after fighting it this time around, because I haven't fought it since my first playthrough. It may or may not be higher ranked than Tree. We'll see how this goes. I don't know. I just wasn't a big fan of the like weird finger attacks, and then it's got like this soft spot in the front. Just a weird boss overall. I don't know. It kind of reminds me of Rom from Bloodborne, but like, I don't know, worse. Oh, you can get lasered from right there. Also, that was a stun lock. I couldn't get out of that. I still think all of the Remembrance bosses in this DLC are passable at worst. Is it a cool boss design? Well, yeah, sure. It doesn't necessarily make a good boss. And that's that. I don't know. Again, I don't know. This boss, like, if it was just a boss design tier list, I would probably rank it pretty high, but it's not. I don't know. The boss just doesn't really feel good to fight to me. C tier below Tree Avatar. Is it below Tree Avatar? I will say at least it has a different phase 2. And instead of like the Tree Avatar, I feel like Mother of Fingers brings more to the table. And for that, I think I'm going to put Mother of Fingers above the Tree Avatar. Not much more to say about this boss. So moving on to a Romina, Saint of the Bud. Okay, Romina, Saint of the Bud. I like this boss's design. We'll get into the nitty gritty of it afterwards. Gut reaction, placement, I would probably say B tier above Putrescent Knight, possibly low A tier. I like Romina. I think Romina feels like a very solid, fair fight. We'll just move on to the boss fight. This is one of the mandatory bosses for the DLC. One of the things I'm not a huge fan of is the sweet spot whole thing you got to do against this boss. Music's good for this fight too. I feel like her attacks are super lenient too. I wonder if that's because she's a mandatory boss for this DLC and non-optional. And we got a stagger to finish it off. I do really like this boss fight. I think that Romina is a very solid fight. Super lenient though, maybe a little too much so. I think that she's definitely like a solid B tier boss. But seeing the next bosses coming up, I already know where I think that they would go. Yeah, I think I'm gonna leave Romina in B tier. I definitely like Romina more than Putrescent Knight. Okay, I think I'm just gonna do it. I think Dancing Lion's better than Putrescent Knight for sure. The music, the whole theme, the elemental sequences, because like Putrescent Knight's fire is cool and all, but it doesn't have the same impact as Dancing Lion. My instant pick for Midra. I love this fight. Midra, Lord of Frenzied Flame, was an S tier fight for me. For obvious reasons, if you see my first playthrough, everything about it is just so fun, and it's still a tricky fight, even if you get a hang of the parries and stuff like that. But the boss design is phenomenal. The cutscene's incredible. My only gripe with the fight is having to fight the old guy in the beginning. That is my only gripe with this fight. Yeah, let's see if my opinion of Midra has changed. This fight is so good. They made him a little bit bulkier than they should have, I think. It would have had the same impact if he had like 2,000 less health. We're gonna watch the cutscene. Oh, I guess my other gripe with this boss is it's not really a fault of the boss itself. I don't like how out of the way it is to get here. Like, it takes so much time. I think this boss would have made for a fantastic mandatory. Oh yeah, I also love the grab animation too. I think I'm gonna let him grab me at some point. Guess I didn't run far enough. That was so bad. That was also bad. The music's so good too. It reminds me of Ludwig's from Bloodborne. It's got a kind of like a waltz type vibe to it. I think this is it. Yeah, let's see. I love the way I love that it's so fucking sick to get hit by that And the way he like reels back and he raises his arms up, it's like such a I'm better than you type of pose. It reminds me of Gladiator when he's like, "Are you not entertained?" Kind of a silly comparison, but I love it. I love it so much. That this boss is just like this boss and Messmer just feels so good to fight too. And this has to be like some of the best music in the DLC as well. To finish it. I'm almost sad the fight ended. It's so good. It's so good. This might be better than Messmer. I might like this fight more than Messmer. I'm so tempted. It's an S fight. It's an S tier fight, straight up. I'm not changing that. Now, whether I would say it's better than Messmer the Impaler, that's another story. I don't know. I feel like Messmer just has that extra layer of immersion and like story building to his fight compared to Midra, where they're both immaculate fights. It comes down to like the boss design and the music. And I like Messmer's design more. I like Midra's music more. They're both on par with each other, but I think that Messmer gets the edge out a little bit more. S tier fight, A tier overall, since you must go through that awful catacomb to get to him. Yeah, we're not going to factor in all that. I did mention earlier that the difficulty of getting to him is really tedious and frustrating, but I'm not going to hold that against the boss itself. I wish this boss was mandatory and less out of the way. I guess a final note on Midra. It is a very, very fun fight to parry. If you want to like practice parrying against bosses or you want to get into parrying bosses, Midra is the perfect fight for that. Yeah, it's just phenomenal fight. I can't get over it. I love it so much. All right, next stop. We're on our final two. Yeah, Bayle the Dread. I fought Bayle the Dread very, very early on my first playthrough. Not that it mattered because I was doing a no fragment run anyways, and I wasn't leveling up, so I was pretty much level 125 throughout the entire DLC. I do really like Bayle the Dread. He is one of those bosses that has a ton of health and kind of requires you to hit him in the head like most boss dragons. Not like all of them. I think it's a very well done dragon fight in the sense that it doesn't feel like Bayle's running from you a whole lot. He's kind of stationary except for phase 2 shenanigans. But other than that, I think Bayle, aside from like the fragmentless run that I did, which initially I didn't have like a great experience with him because I kind of had to switch my build to min-max my damage because it felt like he was resisting every single thing that I did to him. We'll see again with how it goes, but I still think that he was like a bottom A tier. I think that Bayle the Dread was definitely better than Romina and Dancing Lion personally. Let's go fight Bayle. We're gonna use more blessings. Probably we'll go up to 10 just to see how that feels. I've been sitting at a clean 5 for most of these fights. But Bayle, you kind of really need it. Otherwise, your damage is just so low. Which, I mean, is fair, because I feel like Bayle is meant to be fought on high blessing count anyways. I really like this, this phase transition attack, too. I think it blows set of sacks out of the water. Yeah. Boss design wise, Bayle gets a 10 out of 10. I love the way he looks. I did it again. Yeah, like combos like this where they just kind of go on and on. I feel like they could be a little bit shorter, especially for a boss like Bayle that just has so much health. There we go. Not too bad. I mean, it's an intuitive fight. Overall, very good fight. Do I still think he's A tier though? I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of bosses that are just that large, that they like kind of take up most of your screen and sometimes you can't even see what they're doing. But in Bayle's case, if you're close enough to him, or like if you're in front of him enough, but not too close to him, that's never an issue. You can always see what he's doing while still being a really large boss. And there's never a point where it's like, oh man, Well, he was just off my screen because he was so large. That only happens like maybe once in a while when you end up directly under him. Overall, do I think Bayle is A tier? I think I do. I do think Bayle is A tier at least. Do I think he's better than Rellana though? That's a tough one. I'm kind of thinking, yeah, even though you can parry Rellana, I don't know. I just feel like her fight's not as impactful as Bayle's is. That being said, I think I'm actually going to raise Bayle up above Rellana. I do really like his fight. So yeah, and that'll be it for Bayle. Now, the moment we've been all waiting for. Radahn, Consort of Miquella. This fight, honestly, I really don't know. Radahn's gonna be probably the most controversial, or maybe not, I don't know. I still genuinely don't know whether I should place him high or low. My first playthrough, it took me about 10 hours to beat him. His phase 2 is just like, I know it's not an issue, or maybe not as big of an issue on console, but on PC, it just shreds my frame rate. The performance is just not good. Like half of his attacks gut my frame rate down to like 20, 30 FPS. Very difficult boss, but much more manageable when you factor in parrying. And he has attacks that I still, even after 10 hours of fighting him, that I still don't really know how to dodge without just parrying the attack. And I think that that's a pretty big negative for him, because I mean, any boss with attacks that can't be avoided, well, I'm not saying it can't be avoided, but I'm saying that I can't avoid it even after 10 hours of fighting him. And I think that that's a net negative for the boss. So I would probably say off my first playthrough, my gut pick is somewhere right here. I would say like below Bayle, above Rellana. Still a solid fight. I like phase 1. I like phase 1 a lot. It's an epic fight. It's got great music, great boss design. We'll just jump into it. We'll jump into the boss fight, and I'll give it another good go. Now for this fight, it's a little bit more interesting because Radahn does so much fucking damage. I need the Halig Drake +2. I'm also gonna be going up to maybe not max. I'll go to like 18 blessings or 17. 17 should be fine. Yeah, 71 physical, 68 holy. That should be a lot more manageable. Let's see if it's still an A tier fight, or if I would place it higher. 10 out of 10 entrance, 10 out of 10 boss design, 10 out of 10 music. Everything about this fight is perfect. Like, you could not get any better. But the fight itself, phase 1, I would say phase 1's really good. Oh, the music. But then phase 2, it's just like, it's so rough for no reason. I think phase 1 is very fair. Cutscenes are all really good. Miquella's grab is phenomenal. It's so cool. I'm not going to showcase that there just because this fight is rough. And this is where I think that this boss goes from being S tier down to A tier. I mean, a lot of the holy blasts aren't unavoidable. They just appear directly in front of him. So, like, as long as you're just rolling into him, you don't have to worry about getting hit by them. If you lose momentum in this fight, you're kind of screwed. Because you'll just be playing catch-up trying to heal the whole time. And that is the fight. Me avoiding this perfectly is like 0 out of 10% chance. Or 0 out of 10. 0 out of 100% chance. Simply, I've only ever perfectly dodged that like once. But, I mean, like, my first attempt with, like, a, you know, just like a whatever build, I don't think this boss is as bad as everybody says. Especially because, like, the recommended level to do this fight, or, like, do the DLC in general, is 150. And, like, those are all points that you could have spent in damage, or, you know, whatever you want. More health, like, you could even go above the soft cap. I also think this phase should happen at 50% health instead of 75. Music's phenomenal. Nice, last hit was a bleed. My biggest gripe with this fight is just the fact that it kills my frame rate, really. I mean, after all this time, I still feel like it's really good. I think that some of his attacks, a lot more than others, leave him open, but some of them, like, the way he hits you and knocks you back into the AoE of the light, kind of like, if you don't have as much health as I do, that's a death sentence, which means casters are gonna have one hell of a fight against this boss. And I don't know, that's tough. I like this fight, straight up. I do like this fight. Do I like it more than Bayle? I would have to say yeah. For some reason, I don't know, I thought I remember liking it a little bit less, but even after doing it now, Terra Magic plus Common Azure plus Radahn Shackle, yeah. You just gotta find the Radahn Shackle. That'd be funny if Moog Shackle worked on him. I wonder if somebody's tested that yet. Is it an S tier fight though? I can't in good conscience put it in S tier when it has such glaring issues like the frame rate destruction attacks. I'm fine with him being an A tier for now. Maybe in the future if they change it so that the performance side of things, at least on PC, isn't an issue. Then for me, he's top of A tier. And this kind of balanced out pretty well, I would say. Has a nice little bell curve to it. What do we think about this tier list? Oh yeah, I forgot to mention. Gold, I just want to bring these up really quickly. Golden Hippo and Furnace Golem. Golden Hippo is a decent fight. It's not mandatory, but Messmer is, and to get in through the main entrance, you do have to fight Golden Hippo. It's a decent little fight. Not like crazy good, but for it being a non-remembrance boss fight, I would put it here in B tier. So yeah, but I'm not going to leave it on there just for reasons. And Furnace Golem D tier. What the fuck were they thinking? This shit is so bad. Even as a gimmick, like one-off boss, it would still be annoying, but the fact that there's like 10 of these things and they're just so annoying is, I hate them. This is the fire giant of this DLC. In fact, I would put them in an E tier below Commander Gaius if I could, to like being equal, I think. I feel bad putting Tree Avatar as the second worst remembrance boss, but that doesn't mean it's bad. It's in C tier. Doesn't make it a bad fight. At least Metyr has the cool looking attacks in phase 2. Right, that's my thought. That's why I put Tree Avatar below Mother of Fingers, because Tree Avatar has 3 health bars and only gains 1 new attack in phase 2 and then 1 new attack in phase 3, that's boring for a fight that's just kind of like an endurance battle. Overall, I'm pretty satisfied.